Hey y'all, it's episode 354 of the Late Night Vision Show. Welcome back. We've got another great show and we are doing a review. These past few weeks have been just stacked with reviews, and we're getting through SHOT Show. We got all the interviews out of the way. We got all the hoopla around SHOT Show. We're finally getting to all these scopes that we've had for a long time, able to show you what they look like and help you decide if this is something that you want to purchase or not. Now, we love doing this show. We love doing these reviews, but this is actually our full-time job. So if you're looking to purchase a brand new night vision or thermal optic, give us a call, 877-350-1818, outdoorlegacy.com. We'd love to earn your business. We don't expect it, but if you see the show and you like the show, like so many of you do, you call in and say, hey, I'm calling you because I saw y'all on the show and I like what you do, and I can tell you know what you're talking about. A lot of this stuff can be a little daunting when it comes to deciding on an optic. There's so many choices out there, all the new stuff versus the old stuff. Call us. We can talk you through it. We want to earn your business. But Jason, owner of Outdoor Legacy, we've got a review. Tell people today what we are reviewing.
So I'm going to tell them, but I want to go back to something you were saying there real quick, and it's very important, and I'll make this quick as I can. One, Hans gave you the phone number, told you where to call. Again, feel free to call us. You go to the website, check out everything. But two things on that. If you've got a lot of questions, if you've got like a simple question about something of, does this scope come with this battery or that's perfectly fine for an email. But if you've got questions about optics, email is not going to be the best method. There's just way too much to get into talking about different scopes or making recommendations. So if you need that, we say call us, because if you do email us, one of the ladies, somebody's probably going to email you and reply and nicely ask you to go ahead and call us, because it's just the best way to have in-depth conversations about, important things when you're spending this much money. A simple question, again, no problem for an email that way. Second thing, had a comment about this, and Hans and I say this from time to time, but I want to reiterate this. If you're looking for a scope, quite possibly even this scope that we're going to review today, and you go to our website, outdoorlegacy.com, and the scope is out of stock. You'll see a lot of things that are out of stock, okay? A lot of those scopes may be scopes that aren't even actually shipping yet. Maybe we're taking pre-orders for those or back orders. It's scopes that were announced at SHOT Show or some other time during the year when you're watching this. So a lot of times you'll see scopes that say out of stock. It's because they're not actually shipping on the market yet. Other times there's still some discontinued optics that are on the website. We like to leave those up for a while because people are looking for them, and they'll call us and we can explain to them they're discontinued and offer an alternative. And other times you've got scopes like this one, this brand new Pulsar Thermion 2 XL60 that we're just about to jump into the review on, and they are hot commodities. They come in and they go out. A lot of times they actually never hit the website. We have guys that are waiting for them with a deposit, and they ship straight out to their door. So if you ever go to the website and you see an optic that you're looking for that's out of stock, or you say, my gosh, everything's out of stock, there's normally a little more to the story. So give us a call. We'll be glad to help. Love to have your business. Hans, let's jump into this review. Again, as I mentioned, it is the Pulsar Thermion 2 XL60 LRF. Now, quickly, I'm going to go over this. We have just reviewed a couple weeks ago the new Thermion 2 XP60 LRF, and a lot of people are like, hey, I'm familiar with Pulsar, I know these numbers, and 60 is a new number. What does that mean? So Pulsar, right before SHOT Show, announced 3 new optics. The XP60, which is these are all 60 millimeter lenses, and the magnifications went up to meet the market demand. So the XP60 is a 640 17 micron 3 power. The XG60 is a 640 12 micron 4 power. And today we're going to talk about the XL60, which is a 1024 HD resolution 2.5 power, 2.5 power base magnification. And I know there's some guys that are watching and go, well, why do you keep talking about this base magnification? Well, I just want to be clear. Unlike a traditional daytime scope, you cannot just zoom up without losing image quality. The way these thermal scopes work is your zoom is generally going to be done digitally. So digital zoom, you lose quality of your image. So your base magnification, where it starts, is very important. And so the XL60 is the scope of the hour. The price on this optic is $6,999, and it is a great scope with a lot to unpack here. So I'm going to jump into these specs. As I mentioned, it is a 1024 by 768 12 micron resolution thermal scope. It is a 50 hertz refresh rate. And again, as mentioned, the base magnification starts at 2.5 power. Now, the previous XL50 that this scope is essentially an inline replacement for had a 1.75 power. That's very good for hog hunters, close range shooters, guys who were doing most of their shooting at closer ranges, but a lot of people wanted higher base mag, and so Pulsar heard and answered the customer demand. And we have had a few people say, hey, listen, this is 2.5 and the XP's 3 and the G is 4. That's way too much. Why'd they do that? Completely understand that it's more than some people want, but this is definitely where the market has gone. This is what the vast majority of customers are requesting. These are the scopes that they're buying, and so Pulsar is, meeting those market demands, and we're glad to see that. So 2.5 power does have digital zoom that goes up to 20 power, and so field of view is going to be about 61.5 feet horizontally at 100 yards. We've got an ID range. Well, let me back up. They're saying that the detection range is about 3,000 plus yards. That's going to be of something like the size of a human standing up in a field. But what really matters, that doesn't really matter to most hunters. What matters is how far can I actually identify an animal? And this is difficult because what we're trying to do is be conservative and realistic, and how far Hans may be able to ID something with his years of experience and just out every single night with thermals is going to be different than a guy who this is his first thermal scope, clearly. So we try to find a happy medium of being realistic and conservative. And then we also have to take in weather conditions, environment variables, tall grass, brush, hills, all these things that play into the image and being able to see that animal well. But for a hog or a coyote or a deer, those are the three things that most people are most concerned about, and most people are concerned about IDing a deer so they don't mistake it for a coyote or a hog or something they're wanting to shoot. So those three animals, we're going to say ID range is conservatively 600-700 yards. I think in good conditions, we could conservatively say that might be out to 700-800 yards, maybe further in some conditions. And you get in really nasty bad conditions, that may be closer, maybe 500-600 yards. But 600-700 yards easily is kind of what we're going to go with there on our ID ranges. The sensor, Pulsar says it is a sub 35 millikelvin NETD, and it is a sub 20 SNETD rating. On the battery packs, so you can use a USB external battery or power to charge the scope as well as to run it. So if all of your batteries are dead, you can plug in an external USB battery pack and run the scope or charge the batteries. It does have a 2 battery pack system. So you have an internal non-removable battery that's in a 30 millimeter tube. This is extremely common for this style of scope. And you've got a battery in there. We got about 5 hours of runtime on that. And then on the removable battery, which is an APS-3 battery. This is a Pulsar proprietary battery, rechargeable. We got about 3.5 hours of runtime. So you're looking at about 8.5 hours of runtime on a bench test. So that's perfect conditions, us just charging it up, sitting there, watching it go down. So Obviously, in the field, cold weather, they may come down some, but about 8.5 hours of runtime. And the good news is that this APS-3, this is the larger battery that Pulsar sells, they are now including 2 batteries with this scope. So you get 2 of those. So really, if you want to do this, add this 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Out of the box, you would have about 12 hours of total battery runtime using the extra battery. There is a 2 battery cradle charger. It's an external cradle charger that comes in the box. You can charge 2 batteries at one time on that. Quickly kind of wrapping this up, there are 10 different reticle options, 11 reticle colors, 8 different color palettes. Does have a built-in laser rangefinder, 875 yard capabilities on that. And what a lot of people are excited about is that it has a ballistic calculator. Pulsar has been doing this for a while. They've been running these ballistic calculators really, truly, I think they were the first to do it. They've got an app that you can download, put all of your data in there, and then upload that profile to your scope. Very clean, easy to do, as long as you understand ballistics and you know, all the data for your gun, and you've, you know, chronographed your bullet and all that. Put all that in, and you will be good to go. And then, again, as always, video, audio recording, Wi-Fi streaming to a smartphone app, negative 13 degree temperature rating, 375 H&H or a 12 gauge shotgun. This is one thing that I know this is at the bottom of the list. A lot of people won't hear this. We have a lot of guys that email or call and say, I want to run a scope on a shotgun. And I will just tell you that right now, Pulsar is one of the only brands as of, you know, early 2025 that for years has had a recoil rating for 12 gauge shotgun. The weight on this unit with the battery, with the mount, ready to put on the rifle, it's going to be about 52 ounces. That is not lightweight, but here's what we found. That's really where these, you know, larger scopes, bigger lenses, all these features, this is kind of where they're coming in. You know, we reviewed another scope last week that was within 2 ounces of this similar style scope. So that's really kind of where they're going to be, but it's not a small lightweight scope. And then, as always, Pulsar's 5-year warranty. We're glad to see that on this scope. Now, real quick, before Hans jumps in to the specs, there's one on the walk around, there's one thing that I left off, was not on my specs, and I just remembered it. It's one of the big claim to fames about this scope, and that is the new 2560 by 2560 display screen. That is a huge display screen. We're seeing that in more and more optics, and I want to be clear, it's not just higher resolution, it's actually a physically larger display screen. Hans will show you the eyepiece. It's actually been enlarged just a little bit in diameter to allow for that big display. So a last thing, the scope does also include a free $250 American Defense Manufacturing Recon mount. Pulsar USA is including that in the box. So when you take this out, from spare batteries to battery chargers to you know, a high-end QD mount for any Picatinny rail, you are ready to go hunting. Hans, I have just talked nonstop there for a very long time. Why don't y'all show them this?
That's a lot of specs. That's a lot of specs and a lot of thermal video I'm having to put in there.
So good.
Yeah. So Jason already mentioned the display screen. I showed that a little bit while he was talking, and also the American Defense Manufacturing mount, which kudos to Pulsar. That is now included in with these 60 millimeter models, which is fantastic. It does come with the tall battery cap, and it also, you can tell just from this scope, it does look like, I mean, if you're looking at it similar to the other, you know, the other models, the XL60, it's got just a little bit larger objective lens on it with the ambidextrous objective lens focusing knobs on either side. I'll show that. You got the power button here. But this is the larger, I mean, you can tell with that large screen on it, and that it just makes that whole viewing experience. I'm sitting here talking. I've got this the scope is covering in front of my face on the screen. It does give it a better viewing experience, more comfortable for the eye when it's filling up that whole eye box like it is. It does have an eyepiece diopter focus as well, like pretty much all of them do. Now, button layout on top, and yeah, this is if you saw the XP60. It looks very similar in design and features. That is the quick walk around, Jason. We'll jump right into our. You want to talk about our likes or dislikes first, and
Yeah,
then
let's
get on
let's
to
jump
the
on the
boost scope
dislikes real quick.
Okay.
So not many dislikes. I would say that obviously we already mentioned weight. It's a big, heavy scope. Just kind of the way that it is. Again, I want to be clear. That's not abnormal for this style of scope. The battery, it is a proprietary battery. I think that a lot of the market has moved to 18650 batteries. The internal battery, I know some people still don't like. That's just very common in this style of scope. Almost every 30 millimeter tube scope, save maybe one brand, has got that in there. So that's kind of the way that is. I'm not really going to complain much about that, but I mean, it would be nice if it was a non-proprietary battery. But again, they're giving you two of them. They're very fairly priced at $99 a piece, so not a huge gripe. I think one thing, Hans brought this up and mentioned it to me, and it's nitpicky, but it's a good nitpick. I'm glad he brought it up, so I'm going to just go ahead and mention it. And it is a little bit of information overload on the screen. And again, I keep saying this, but we're seeing this with more optics. I think we've probably should have been mentioning this on some other brand reviews as well, but I think part of it is due to some of these ballistic calculators. There's more things coming on the screen, so like when you range, it puts a black box with that range there. And you have to, like, I don't know, Hans, what, double click the button or something.
Yeah, and it's like right in the middle of the screen, right next to your range finding reticle, right off to the side of it. Yeah,
it's I don't like it. I again, Hans and I don't use ballistic calculators. Okay, so you got to understand that we're not long range shooters. We do not use any of the ballistics, and so for us, it's just it's an annoyance. I want that little, somewhere maybe up top to give me the range. That's fine, but I don't want it in a black box in the middle of the screen. Also, down in your lower left, you will see something that will say, like, as an example, A100, and you probably see it. And I think that shows up on the videos as well. What that is that's telling you you're zeroing profile A at 100 yards. Well, that's been on these scopes before in maybe less prominent places, but they're really wanting to make sure because if you're using the ballistics, you need to know which rifle you're using and which range. I mean, all this is important for those guys. So I think maybe and other brands are doing this to ballistics and all this stuff that gets put in here. There has to be more information, and it's kind of information overload in my opinion. And maybe not overload, but just things that I don't need and I don't care about. I've got it zeroed on one rifle, and that's all. I don't need to know which one. So again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I don't know. Just it gets to be annoying when you start looking through all these different scopes and there's all this information on the screen. But if you need it, you're very glad that it's there.
Yeah.
So Hans, I'm always the dirty guy. I always say all the bad things.
Yeah.
Why don't you say some positive things?
I think if you're looking at the difference, there's a lot of people out there that either have the XL50 or were interested in the XL50, and they say, what's the big difference here? What's the big takeaway from this, new scope and new review? What I would say is that the biggest thing you're going to notice, the difference-wise, obviously, and I think what they promoted, Pulsar promoted the most, was the jump in magnification. If there was one negative about the XL50, was that it was the fact that it was a 1.75 base magnification, which, although with that increased resolution, you could still use it in some long-range capabilities. The 1.75 being such a low base magnification really kind of cornered it into a shorter range classification of scopes. So I think 2.5 power, which is what it's gone to now, it's gone from 1.75 to 2.5 base magnification. So that increase of base magnification, I think really makes it to where it can be used in any situation. If you think about it, short range still has a really generous field of view at 61 feet, but it also, with the 2.5 power and the fact that, when you go to 5 power, you're still at, 512 resolution. So you're still keeping, because you're starting at such high resolution, you're still retaining a lot of that resolution when you're going through the digital magnification process and going up. And so it gives you a little bit more higher end magnification that you can use because of that increased resolution. So you've got that, I think, is one of the biggest things. Obviously, the 2560 by 2560 screen, I talked about it earlier, it just adds just a level of, I don't want to say enjoyment, but just giving you a better experience when you're looking through the scope, because everything does look bigger and brighter in that bigger screen. So that was an important thing. The American Defense Manufacturing mount is a big deal. Again, with Pulsar being, honestly, I mean, Jason, for many, many years, just such a dominant force in the thermal hunting market. The Thermion has been around for quite a long time, and it never included, any type of quality mount, or most never included a mount at all. And now what they've found, I would say, is some of these other companies were including mounts. They're doing it now, which is great. Include and not just coming up with their own QD mount or having their own QD mount manufactured for them. They got on board with American Defense, so that's a big deal. So with the mount included in, that's a $250 value that's included in. I think the price is great at $69.95. Again, they've kept their price. It didn't come down. Their price didn't come down. Well, actually, it did come down. It was, when the XL50 came out, it was $79.95, right?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, so it's come down.
But they kept us the price that the XL50 has been recently.
So they kept the price, but you're getting better features and better accessories. Let me look at my list. Let me see if I think.
So Hans, you did a great job there, and I think you might have even said this in that, but if you did, I missed it. Essentially, what we're saying though is the difference in this scope and the Thermion 2 XL50 LRF obvious. So 1.75. This XL60 is a 2.5 power. This scope has a 2560 by 2560 huge display screen, where the XL50 had the 1024 by 768 standard size display screen. Obviously, if you're buying new, it doesn't matter because the scope's going to come with the mount. But if a man already owns the XL50 and he's happy with it, the only benefit to him is really going to be, if he needs it, increased magnification and a bigger display screen. So I just wanted to point out that, people say, how does it compare to the old model? I don't think that, and again, if you said all this, Hans, I'm sorry, I just missed it. We're saying this is an absolute upgrade in a couple different ways, but I would say image quality is essentially going to be the same or very, very similar. It's not worse for sure, but if it's any better, it's minimal. What you are getting, and why I think people are jumping on this XL60 the way they are, is a higher base magnification, kind of like you explained there. It offers more capabilities for more people, being able to shoot longer range over the old XL50.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I don't think Pulsar was running out there saying, hey, this is going to be a vastly better picture image than the previous model. Right. Again, the way that we interpreted the scope in our discussions with them and our testing with them was we're listening to the hunters. They wanted more in magnification. We did it, the larger screen. Yeah. The ID range is really good, Jason, on it, something like this. So if you're wanting something you can ID it at long ranges, I think you're going to find that this is going to allow you to really stretch out there and get that good positive ID. It does show a lot of detail in the image.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing, this is not a crystal ball. I think it's very clear. If we look out there on the market right now, almost all except maybe one of the 1024 and the 1280 optics are 2 to 2.5 power. They are lower magnifications, and that's because it is more difficult to get higher optical magnification in these optics with the higher resolution sensors. So without going down some big technical road that would be above my pay grade, essentially the higher their resolution is, the larger the lens or the longer the focal length or both has to be able to get the higher base mag. And so we've joked about this before, is that I think a lot of people think that to set a base magnification, the manufacturer kind of like, it's like winding up a clock, or a music box that go crank, crank. All right, let's stop at 1.75. It's like, let's stop at 2.5. There's way more into the electrical engineering and video. These are really video cameras, photography type, requirements of what it takes to make one of these scopes higher magnification. So that's why we're seeing these in this 2.5 power. And I do think that 2.5 is, you brought up some good points there. It's enough that it allows you to take those longer shots. You go to a 5 power, if you zoom, double it and go all the way up to a 5 power, you're still at a 512 resolution. So I would say that this scope and width, I'm going back here, my notes, I have to dig them out. I think I said about a 65 foot field of view, 61 and a half. So 60, let's just say 60 foot field of view at 100 yards, that's really wide. Okay, that's a lot of field of view. So what that means is, my opinion is that a guy who's, maybe you're going to take some 30, 40, 50, 60 yard shots. 100% this scope is good for it. Maybe you're going to take some of those 500, 600 yard shots, which is mind numbing to me at night because I couldn't hit my barn at that far. But if that's you and you're going to use the ballistics, this scope is capable of that. And so I do think that, again, both hog and coyote hunters, right on this 2.5 power, you're kind of shooting that up the middle. And I think it's way more of an all-around optic, again, than the previous model, the 1.75, that really kind of pigeonholed that scope a little more than I think that the XL60 has been.
Jason, this is YouTube, and you're not supposed to be honest on YouTube. You can shoot coyotes at 800 yards.
And 2,000. Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. What does specs say? 3,000 yard detection range. Yeah. Then you can shoot them at 3,000, right?
Exactly right. So let's talk a little bit. I think we can recap this, and I think we've kind of alluded to all this, but who this scope is good for, and I would say, it's kind of, it's one of those in betweens. The guys that are hunting, Jason, in the woods, where you and I are, a lot of close range situations, we like typically a 2 power base magnification, because you might be, hunting a 20 acre open field surrounded by forest, and you might have a coyote jump out at you at 20 yards. You never know. But you talk to a lot of coyote hunters that are hunting in wide open fields, and they like a 3, maybe 3.5 power base magnification, maybe even more. So I think at 2.5 power, again, it does give you the ability to do short range and some longer range situations, being able to enjoy that higher resolution count. You're starting out at higher resolution. Now, it does, this is a scope that if you are, and I would say if you're doing this is probably not the style of scope you would get anyway. You'd probably get something like a Talion. But if you're wanting like a truck gun, something lightweight to keep in your vehicle to jump out and shoot a coyote, this is probably not something you want to get into. But this is definitely for somebody, and it's a tube style scope, so it will mount on any, AR style rifle or bolt action rifle. But this is, you see guys that are setting up these nicer high end rifles, these chassis rifles, and doing some long range shooting. I will say, all the people that I talk to, all the long range shooters, we get a lot of long range shooters that call into the office every day, and they are very complimentary of the ingenuity or intuitiveness of the Pulsar Ballistics calculator and the app. And if you get in there and mess with that thing, they have so many loads and factory loads that are already inputted into this. So you just go in and choose your even your brand, your weight. It's very specific. They've done a fantastic job of doing it, and it is very accurate. A lot of people talk about how great it works. And you look online, you see videos of people shooting very long range with it on still targets at 600, 700, 800 yards, which is fantastic. So I think, if you are a long range shooter, first of all, you're going to want a good scope that has a permanently attached built-in laser rangefinder, I would say, and something with a great ballistics calculator like the Pulsar. And I think if there's one thing that they've really done very well at is that ballistics app, the separate app that you download, Jason.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's a lot to love about this scope. And again, I don't want to just gush over this and continue to go on, but I feel like I think Hans and I are probably, and I think not just us, I think the whole market is quickly becoming an unappreciative and ungrateful child for what we really have here. And what I mean by that is we have a 1024 resolution thermal scope with a 2560 display that has a built-in laser rangefinder with ballistics and every other bell and whistle. Comes with a spare battery. Comes with a $250 mount. All of this for $7,000. And we go, $7,000, that's a lot of money. It was a matter of weeks ago. I mean, no time at all. I'm not talking about way ancient history. I'm talking about literally weeks or months ago when we had 640 scopes that were $8,000, $8,500, $9,500. We're not, again, we're talking about December here. We're talking about, this is not long ago because we're recording this in, first week or two of February of 2025. So here we sit with a full-featured, fantastic 1024 scope with all the bells and all the whistles and all the accessories for $7,000. And I just don't think that I'm gonna blame Hans and I just don't think that we're grasping where we're getting. We're just another 1024 scope. And listen, let's be honest, that's the way the market's going. There are going to be more of these. 640s getting cheaper, 384s getting cheaper. These are going to get cheaper. We know that over time, but we're making some, this industry is making some fast moves as everything in these HD sensors is just getting better and less expensive, and it's awesome.
We might be the biggest spoiled children of the whole bunch because you're right, because we're looking at these and saying, okay, and what else has it got? What else has it got? Okay, that price, it needs to be lower. So we are probably more guilty of anybody. But that you talk about the how quickly a market changes and the availability or not availability, because that with some brands can be a little bit sketchy at times, but just the pure number of choices that people have, and is this scope is the right one? Is this brand, is this new brand that's popping up every month? Is this the right scope for me? And that you have to kind of weed through all of that. It's tough, and you see a lot of things on Facebook that just kind of make you cringe, that you just know is just not correct. And there's just so much information, Jason, out there that a lot of people are having to weed through. That's kind of why we're here, y'all. I mean, well, not kind of. That is why we are here. We're here to sell scopes, and we produce these shows selfishly. We know that this helps Outdoor Legacy get business, but Jason, all the people that call, every single one of them, thank y'all for putting out this information. And we know that we put out this information, and not everybody is going to immediately pick up the phone and dial and call us or hop on the website and buy something. So we put out a lot of free information for people to consume, and we're very blessed with our business. But we do this full time. Jason is the owner of Outdoor Legacy. Jason and I have worked together for many years doing this. Back when we started this show and you said, let's start a podcast. And I thought that, why would we do that? Everybody's doing a podcast. And I thought we were way behind the curve, and apparently we were way ahead of it. I thought we were late to the show, and I guess we were kind of early.
We were early to the thermal game, but late to the
podcast world. But yeah. So what I would say is, if you are if you're seeing these shows and you enjoy the content and you're looking for a scope, give us a chance to earn your business. You can do that by calling us 877-350-1818, outdoorlegacy.com. I hope I got the phone number right. I've gotten it wrong in the past, even though I say it all the time. But we'd love to earn your business. We do, Jason being the owner, him and I work together for a long time, but there's a lot of people that you don't see that are fantastic. Garrett, our other salesman. You've got Jessica, you got Angela and Michaela answering the phones, and they probably wish that they could grow another set of arms and ears so they could handle all the phone calls that come in. Because you and I will sit back and be like, man, it was busy, but it was manageable. And they'll look at us being like, you have no clue.
Yeah, they're wanting to kill us. Yeah.
We answered 3 times the amount of phone calls that you even saw. So thank you to the girls. Anyway, Jason, if you're looking, I already told you where to find us. Outdoor Legacy on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube. And you can find me on YouTube at Hans ETX and also on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, guys. Hope that you enjoyed this review. If you're looking for the Thermion 2 XL60 LRF or any other night vision or thermal optic, Hans told you where to find us. We would love to have your business. If you want to see these reviews continue over time, please support us with your business when you're ready to make a purchase. Guys, hope to be back next week. We have got more reviews coming. I just got off the phone with a thermal manufacturer saying there's some more exciting scopes that could be in our hands within a couple weeks. So y'all stay tuned right here to the Late Night Vision Show. Between now and then, y'all stay safe.